I can be cynical about a lot of things, but I cannot be cynical about Hall of Fame weekend.
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, baseball fans. Welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever they're calling it these days, and on Instagram. I'm at Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram, but the best way to get a hold of me is right here on the YouTubes, and leave a comment. If you're going to go to any of the social media sites, be sure to leave that hashtag Everyday Sully. It helps us find your comments. It is Monday morning, and hopefully you enjoyed your weekend. It was a fun weekend. Let's talk about the trivia question. And I talked about some of the players who I would like to see in the Hall and don't quite understand what's going on with Alex Rodriguez. How many players in the top 20 all-time career WAR are not currently in the Hall of Fame? That was my trivia question. And quite frankly, I put it there because I want to just talk a little bit about some of the players who are on the outside looking in. And we had this was who got it right? Someone got it. Well, someone got Jackson Van Hoosier got as close as he could, and I got to make sure we understood the caveat there. He said there are three players in the top 20 career WAR. They're not in the Hall of Fame. Bonds and A-Rod because they use steroids, and Pujols because he's not eligible yet. That's for WAR for position players. For WAR altogether, the three are Bonds, A-Rod, and Roger Clemens. Pujols is 29th all-time in WAR. I'm not even a huge fan of WAR, but I think it's kind of, as I've said before, I've treated WAR kind of like Wikipedia, which is it's a good starting off point. If you're trying to compare some players, it's a good starting off point. And the point I'm making is you have three players. If you're saying PEDs are the whole reason they're up there, I'm not buying it. We have PED users in the Hall of Fame. And if you want to grade on a curve, if you want to grade saying like, okay, we're going to reduce like, 10, 20% of your numbers, Bonds, Clemens, and A-Rod still get in. They are the best players of their era, and we have known PED users who are in the Hall of Fame right now. I'm not for the sanctimonious part. And Sean, we had one of my listeners, Sean Bohan 9491 says, simple question: were PEDs illegal in baseball during the steroid era? No. In other words, they were within the rules simply because no rule existed to prohibit them. I gotta throw a tiny bit of caveat on that one, Sean. It was there may not have been a rule against it in Major League Baseball, but it was illegal to use those drugs without prescription from a doctor. And I'm not even someone who is like crazy anti-PEDs, but we can't act like it was within the rules. It was against the law. Like a spitball is against the rules, but there's no law against it. Like I can't throw a spitball on in a game or use an emery board on a game, but I could stand on the corner of I could stand on Market Street in San Francisco with a file, and I could file a baseball all day long. I could stand in front of the statue of Gaylord Perry and I could drool all over the ball and lick it. That's not illegal. It's gross, but it's not illegal. But I understand a little bit what you're saying. They weren't testing for steroids at the time. Look, we just got to do something because there are people who belong in the Hall of Fame, I believe, and there we go. But let's talk a little bit about the ceremony. I could be cynical about a lot of things, including the process of electing people in the Hall of Fame, like the fact that why did Dick Allen have to wait to be posthumous, or or Ron Santo or Buck O'Neill? Why do we have to wait for them to be posthumously put in? Or why did Dave Parker have to wait so long? All these different things, the politics and this, that, and the other thing. And yet, on the day they induct him in the Hall of Fame, boy, oh boy, am I a sucker for it. Hook, line, and sinker. And it's kind of like the Academy Awards. You could talk to me all day about how meaningless they are and awful they are and political they are, and I will nod all day. And come Oscar night, I am glued to it and wanting things to happen. And I'm that way with Hall of Fame, the Hall of Fame day. I'm a sucker for it. I'm a sucker for both of them, the Oscars and the Hall of Fame. And all the logical reasons you can say that I shouldn't be interested in this or the other thing, I get a lump in my throat. I'm watching it going like, I got to live in Cooperstown. I got to move to Cooperstown. I was on Zillow. There's a really good place right around the corner from there. If I had an extra $700,000 burning in my pocket, in fact, I should have a GoFundMe to have your pal Sully live in Cooperstown. I digress. Billy Wagner gave a very moving speech. CC Sabathia, who was just terrific. I think he should be an announcer, quite frankly. Ichiro was hilarious, absolutely hilarious. His speech, I mean, he's great and he's smooth and he has a Dean Martin quality to him. He is just such a badass. And talking about how all the writers appreciate his great stats, and then referring to the fact that one writer didn't vote for him, said all but one. And he said the offer to have dinner in his home that offer is expired. He had a lot of funny bits, including say when he was offered a contract by the Miami Marlins. He said, "I had not heard of your team at that point." I mean, I'm sorry, that got a blurt laugh from your pal Sully. I thought that was really, really funny. But man, bust out the waterworks when the widow of Dick Allen came up and spoke about his career and spoke about just what a kind man he was and how he befriended a young boy during Dick Allen's brief tenure with the LA Dodgers and kind of became a mentor to him. And the kid was in the audience as someone who was who Dick Allen was a big part of his life, and telling the story that as Dick Allen was basically dying and the Phillies retired his number, and he was too weak to give a speech at the ceremony, but he spoke from his heart. Dick Allen could have been in the Hall of Fame about a decade ago, and he fell one vote shy in a Veterans Committee vote. There's no reason for that happening. He didn't add any new stats. We could have celebrated with him on the stage, but it was a better late than never situation, and it was really beautiful. And I think the most beautiful moment of the whole ceremony was Dave Parker II, who, by the way, looks almost exactly like his father. Read, because, of course, Dave Parker knew he was in the Hall of Fame, but he died less than a month before his induction. And, excuse me, I scratched my nose. He read, and the fact that he wasn't a professional speaker and you could tell that he was nervous, to me, added to the emotion of the moment. And he did such a wonderful job basically reading a poem that the Cobra wrote, knowing that he was going to the Hall of Fame and knowing he probably wasn't going to be alive to be there. And please, please, please go on YouTube, go on MLB.com and find Dave Parker's son reading that poem. And for me, Dave Parker was always one of my favorite players. He was part of that 79 Pirate team, which is one of my favorite teams of all time. And I got to admit, I teared up a little bit. And it was a truly beautiful moment in a day that I'm an absolute sucker for. When we come back, I want to talk a little bit about, some of you had some interesting responses to my Hall of Fame show that I did on Sunday morning. And a couple other factors I want to bring up, because it's been interesting points of discussion about the Hall of Fame. Hey, let's talk to our good friends over at Time Hue. Yeah, you know that I'm a native New Englander, and my team, I grew up with the Red Sox. I got the hat that is the Red Sox color here, but I don't always want to have the big logo. I don't always want to have that advertised around there. And this is a great hat for it. It's brought to you by Game Time Hue. Now, Game Time Hue is clean, no logo gear with team-inspired colorways for every pro and college fan base. It's about letting your colors speak for you. No giant logos, just smart, versatile style that works on game day, on the course, and anywhere in between. Now, I'll wear a logo on my hat, but sometimes I want to look a little more low-key. Now, my cousin Josh, who I talk about, we go golfing all the time, he doesn't like to have logos on what he wears because he's, an adult. And sometimes he wants to look a little more subtle. Or when we go golfing, he doesn't want to have a big San Diego Padres hat on. So he has his Padres colors. I got my Red Sox colors. And it's not just hats. Check out the split shade gloves made for the golf course. And it's a perfect gift for the fan who has everything. Right now, you can get 15% off with code MLB15 at GameDayHue.com. That's GameDayHue.com. The code even stacks on bundle deals, so now's the time to load up. Let your colors talk because colors speak louder than words. That's GameTimeHue.com, code MLB15. All right, let's get to some of the things that people had said. I had said that there are a couple. We should look at players who are still alive, who probably have compelling Hall of Fame cases, and try to get them in there so we don't have any more of this posthumous crap. I'm a big proponent that Dave Stieb belongs to the Baseball Hall of Fame. I think collusion basically cut Al Oliver out of the Hall of Fame, and I brought those two out. And then Jerry Covert said, "What about Bill Madlock, four-time batting champ?" By the way, yet another member of the 1979 Pittsburgh Pirates. He's an intriguing case. Bill Madlock is, for a while was truly one of the elite hitters in baseball, and he was someone who was he was a great all-around hitter, four-time batting champion. He was an all-star for multiple years. I know we don't cling to batting titles as tightly as we used to, but he was a tremendous player for a long time. Had decent speed, had decent power, was a terrific all-around hitter. Was one of these players whose baseball IQ was off the charts, and was a big part of the Pirate team that won the World Series in 1979. In fact, he batted .375 with an OPS of .899 in that year's World Series, and had a phenomenal NLCS as a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers in 1985. He probably would have been the NLCS most valuable player. That was the series where, the Go Crazy folks home run by Ozzie Smith and then the Jack Clark home run. Bounced around a little bit towards the end of his career. He finished his career with the Tiger team that went to the ALCS. You could point to the fact that his acquisition as a mid-season acquisition by the Pittsburgh Pirates in 1979 was a big reason, was kind of the last piece of the puzzle. Lenny Randall, the late Lenny Randall, who was a Pirate for about, an hour and a half, was part of the deal with San Francisco. Al Holland, Ed Whitson were part of the trade, and he was a terrific player. Go to baseballreference.com, the single greatest website in the history of the planet Earth, and his comps are people like Carney Lansford, Pinky Higgins, Melky Cabrera, but a couple of Hall of Famers like George Kell and Frank Home Run Baker. So he's probably and Joe Mauer. So he's probably a borderline candidate, but certainly one who is worth an examination. I love this, and Jerry also brought this up. If not for Game 6 of the '86 World Series, I really believe Bill Buckner would be in. You make a good point there. Buckner had a wonderful career, borderline. But it's interesting. I've thought about it. Dwight Evans threw out the first pitch at a recent Red Sox game, and I was thinking about Dwight Evans, who I think also has a compelling case for the Hall of Fame. Buckner had a terrific career, and sadly, he was saddled with the scapegoat of the '86 World Series, which if anyone ever talks about that, tries to make fun of Buckner or anything like that, I automatically just tune that person right out, because anyone who derides Red Sox fandom or Bill Buckner and blames him for the World Series is someone who's displaying their ignorance, in my opinion, because Bill Buckner did not blow that World Series. If he made the play, if he picked up if ground ball to him, if he picked up the ball and either stepped on first or tossed over to Stanley covering first, that would not have clinched the World Series. The game was tied. This myth that if he made the play, the Red Sox would have won the World Series is factually incorrect. And the other thing is that didn't clinch the World Series for the Mets. There was a Game 7, a game which Buckner scored a run and got a key hit in. Buckner was a terrific player who was playing hurt. He probably should not have been playing that Game 6, not because of his, the error, but because it was a left-handed pitcher in Bobby Ojeda. His ankles were injured. He was in a slump at that year's World Series. They probably should have started Don Baylor instead of Buckner in that Game 6, but I digress. He was a wonderful, wonderful player, and may rest in peace. And, of course, was also fantastic in that episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm. His teammate, who was actually the one who picked up the ball that rolled through his legs, which was Dwight Evans, had a phenomenal career. And I believe this. If the Red Sox got that final out in 1986, if Gary Carter had popped up, if Kevin Mitchell had grounded out, Ray Knight had popped out, or Mookie, I almost said Mookie Betts, Mookie Wilson fouled off. I think he's still fouling off pitches. 9,000 pitches he fouled off. If he swung and missed on one of them, I believe that Jim Rice would have gotten in the Hall of Fame on the first ballot, not on the 15th. And I believe Dwight Evans would have been in the Hall of Fame as well. And I believe that Roger Clemens and Wade Boggs would have been Red Sox for life, because their role in the championship would have been so great that there would have been no way the Red Sox could have ever have let them go. But Jim Rice would have been in the Hall of Fame in the first ballot, because the narrative would have been Williams was the greatest player, Yastrzemski was the great hitter, but they won with Jim Rice. That would have been the narrative, and he would have been in ballot one. And by being part of the World Series champion Red Sox team, that would have carried over into the goodwill of Dwight Evans. I absolutely believe that. And also, I mean, furthermore, of the Jim Rice narrative, you would have looked back at the 75 World Series. Jim Rice was phenomenal in 1975, but missed the playoffs because of a broken hand. You would have looked at that 86 World Series and retroactively said, if Rice was healthy in 75, they would have won then too. But if one of those outs was made, Dwight Evans would be in the Hall of Fame right now. I absolutely believe that. And Scott Campbell, I know, like him, Scott, my buddy Scott here, who said we had a Hall of Fame weekend without Pete setting up a place to sell autographs. Yeah, I mean, the Pete Rose is going to come up again, especially at the next veteran committee, but he's not setting up camp there. I was in Cooperstown, not this summer, but the previous summer, and you couldn't walk 2 feet without seeing something that Pete had signed. And of course, he would set up camp during the Hall of Fame ceremony and somewhere outside, and the Hall of Fame hated him for it because he took the attention away. But there you go. I'm not, obviously I don't want to have I don't want to have the say that, oh, I'm glad someone's gone with Pete, but I'm glad that we're no longer dealing with that on Hall of Fame weekend. And there are other people that we can celebrate moving forward. But I'm telling you, what a weekend. What a fantastic weekend. And I will be cynical about this, that, and the other thing, but I just can't be cynical about this weekend. It's too much fun. All right, enough about the past. Let's look about the present. Who owned baseball for the 27th day of July? Brady Singer. He took a shutout into the eighth, allowing 3 hits and 1 run over 7 1/3 innings. And the Reds doubled up the Rays. The Rays are fading fast, and I really they're going to be playing the Yankees, and it's going to be interesting to see how they play a judgeless Yankee team. Something's got to give in that series. By the way, the good on the Yankees. I mean, I'm not a Yankee fan, but good on the Yankees for showing a little bit of I don't know, a little bit of guts by not getting swept by the Phillies, and McMahon immediately paying dividends. He got a key hit, drove in a run, and saved 2 runs with a spectacular play. So give them credit where credit is due. But you got the judgeless Yankees and a rudderless Rays team right now. And we're going to see which end comes up. The Mets completed a sweep of the Giants, and they're in first place by a game and a half right now. Ronnie Mauricio went 4 for 4 with a home run. The Mets won 5-3. JT Ginn, another stunning sweep. Sacramento swept Houston. And Houston is, there is no super team in the American League. There is no super team. Toronto's the closest thing we have to that right now. I mean, who knows? Because they can pitch and because they can hit, maybe they are the super team. But Houston, who for a while looked like they were just going to put the aft thrusters on, have allowed Seattle and Texas to start to climb back in and maybe think they have a shot at this division title. And speaking of Texas, JT Ginn, by the way, was great for Sacramento as they won 7-1. And Josh Smith got on base 4 times, including a home run. The Red Hot Rangers won 8-1 over Atlanta. And half wobs, Andrew Benintendi, Yuri Perez, Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer turned back the clock. Vintage performance. Struck out 11 of the Tigers over 7 innings, but the Blue Jays fell a 10-4. But let's talk about those Rangers. The Rangers swept Atlanta. The Rangers are on a big roll right now. And now they are tied with Seattle for one of the wild card spots. Right now, the Rangers would be a playoff team. With that pitching staff, if they acquire one hitter, they are the exact team that could absolutely upset that apple cart. Absolutely could. And right now, I mean, the Blue Jays beat up the Tigers pretty badly. They lost the final game, so they didn't pull off the sweep, but they got a great performance by Scherzer. So right now, the Blue Jays do look like the best team in the American League. And it's more than just one good month. It's been a real run. But we will see that it really takes one bad week to derail an entire season. And you do not want to face a team like Texas. This is a huge week coming up for the Yankees. They're going out to face Tampa Bay, who wants to climb back into the postseason. The Yankees, despite everything, have been a postseason team. They have a perfect summer score. But the Red Sox, who won that series against Los Angeles, they're only a game back of them. And the Rangers are climbing up big time. And Seattle obviously can win. They lost today. There is a larger than zero chance that the Yankees could miss the postseason, especially with the Judge injury. So they got to start winning series again because that's what's killing them. They're losing series. They lost another one to Philly. If they want to really hold off the naysayers, they got to start winning series. And the Yankees, they have to pick up they did a good job getting a stopgap at third base. I really think McMahon is, we see it. They have an actual third baseman. They need to acquire at least one starting pitcher, at least one reliever, and a bat, an outfield bat, because you cannot put Giancarlo Stanton in the outfield. You can't do it. He will get hurt. So, it's not like there's a ton of great outfielders out there, but you know what? They got to be creative. No one thought Rafael Devers was available. The Yankees have to acquire another bat. to offset this. They're not going to get another Aaron Judge, but they have to make sure that this lineup is not filled with easy outs. Otherwise, you chip away, you lose another series, you lose another series, and then they'll miss the playoffs altogether. And there you go. All right, we got a great week of baseball, and of course, the trade deadline is later this week. And I'm also doing an episode about two household names, star baseball players, one current, one former player, and I think both of them should be managers. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. We brought up Bill Buckner earlier. On this day in 1987, the year after the infamous error, Buckner was let go because the Red Sox were on a big youth movement that year, and Sam Horn took his roster spot. On this day in 1987, Bill Buckner signed with another team. What was the team that Bill Buckner signed with and finished the 1987 season with? Who did he go to after the Red Sox in 1987? Put the answer right down here and follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or whatever the hell it's called now, and on Instagram. And by the way, thanks so much for making Locked On MLB your first listen. For your second listen, keep it right here at the Locked On MLB channel and check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Talking about a great Hall of Fame weekend filled with laughs and tears, some Hall of Fame thoughts, and some thoughts about the Texas Rangers who have climbed back into it. This has been Locked On MLB. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully.